Good afternoon, everybody. Had a good day so far? Pretty good? Stay off class at least? Okay. My name's Mark, but pretty much everyone who knows me calls me Mr. C. And I'm here today to talk to you guys about hacking. Now, the word hacker has become something of a dirty word these days, and that's only a recent thing, because hacking's been around for a very, very long time. I want to talk to you today to try and explain what hacking really is. Okay, so it's not just people who want to try and break into your bank account, steal your details online, do nasty things to you. Hacking is actually a way of thinking. It's a way of looking at technology and the way the world works. The origins of the word hacker are actually from way, way back just after the Second World War in 1948. At MIT in America, one of the most prestigious engineering, mathematics and science universities in the world. At the Tech Model Railroad Club at MIT. Part of the Tech Model Railroad Club was a team of super geeks who called themselves the Signals and Power Subcommittee, because geeks love to give themselves grand-sounding names when they make groups. And they built the ARRC, the Automatic Railroad Running Computer, which was based on telephone relays that they borrowed from the phone company. So they were sort of pieces of apparatus that you could use. You see them in the old movies, the ladies plugging the plugs into that machine to connect phone lines. One of those. So they borrowed a couple of those, and they made a system using those AT&T phone routers and their train line that built a car that would drive itself around the track at night while they were all in bed, so they didn't have to clean up the mess after themselves. After they'd finished playing trains all day, they could go back home to bed, and their little system, the ARRC, would run a special train car around the track, scrape everything away, ready for the next day's playing. They were the first hackers. They also built a thing called the Jargon File, which we'll talk about in a little while, and the Jargon File is still online today. It's one of the oldest online documents. You can go and check it out. And what it is basically a hacker dictionary. It's a dictionary of all the terms and jargon and acronyms that computer and techie people use. If you go and have a look on there, you'll find all sorts of things, but they actually define the word hacker in the Jargon File, and we'll come to that in a little minute. Something I like to call the dash.dis happened in 1903. It's probably the first instance of hacking as we know it today, the first instance of somebody breaking someone's secure communication system, taking control of it. Guglielmo Marconi was a prolific inventor at the turn of the century, and he was a radio pioneer. So he used to mess around with radio waves, trying to conduct things across the air, okay, sending electricity via airwaves. And he was shouting about his new invention, which was a totally secure, wireless form of communication that could span hundreds and hundreds of miles. He said that unless you know the exact frequency on which I'm broadcasting my special signal, you won't be able to hack into it. Nobody will be able to hear it. It's totally secure. We know this today as radio. So if you tune into 96 FM or whatever it is, you can hear the BBC or whoever else it is. And Marconi thought that this was his new secure system of communication. There was an Englishman called Maskelyne, Neville Maskelyne, a famous stage magician at the time, father of the even more famous Jasper Maskelyne, for you history buffs who know about the Second World War. And he decided that he wasn't very happy with Marconi, who had his huge broad patent, so he would come up with a rough idea and say, this is my idea, and if you borrow anything from my idea, you owe me some money. So he was one of the first patent trolls that existed, Marconi, and Maskelyne decided this wasn't a nice way to conduct business, nor did he think Marconi was a very nice man, and so he thought that he would mess with him. Marconi convened a meeting of the Royal Institute, the greatest scientific minds in the world at the time, to come together, meet in London, and watch the first broadcast of Marconi's radio secure machine. He wanted to send a message that said, "Good morning, gentlemen, it's lovely in Cornwall." Okay, he wanted to send this message across, and Maskelyne decided that that wasn't going to happen in what I call the First Pwning. Maskelyne versus Marconi. Maskelyne decided that he didn't want that to happen, and so he went a few buildings down, built himself a radio broadcaster because he had worked out Marconi's system, he knew how it worked, made his own broadcaster, and in the Royal Institute they got this Morse-coded message.
Win. Perfect.
The message he sent was, there was a young fellow of Italy who diddled the public quite prettily. This was the first message that the Royal Institute received across radio transmission, and it was a troll. What happened? All the Royal Institute people lost their marbles. They thought this was ridiculous and ungentlemanly and uncouth. And Maskelyne said, well, I don't like people who come along and tell everybody their system is secure when they don't even understand the system themselves. I don't want you to follow this charlatan, this man who says he knows everything and has all the answers for you, because he doesn't. And I'm here to show you that he doesn't. And this is what a lot of hackers do today. The Jargon File defines hacker as a noun, and there are 8 different definitions. All of them cover some part of what hacking is. Taken all together, they give you a rough idea of what a hacker would be, but the best one is this one, number 7. Someone who enjoys the intellectual challenge of creatively overcoming or circumventing limitations. I've got a problem. I can't solve it with the things that exist today. What can I do? Well, I can either give up, which is not a solution at all, or I can take the things I have today and try and rework them into something more, something different, something better, and solve my problem with those. Or maybe I take something that's not supposed to be used in a particular way, use it in the way that nobody wants me to use it, and that solves my problem. There are lots of instances of this happening throughout history, people who took something and used it for something it wasn't supposed to be used for. You ever heard of a sticky mine? Second World War? Soldiers realized they couldn't stop tanks front on, so what do? Well, you take your boots off, you get your sock, right? You put a grenade in it, dip your sock in axle grease, and now you've got a thing that will stick to the side of a tank. You're not meant to use axle grease for that. You're certainly not meant to take your socks off in a combat situation. But it worked. They managed to stop a lot of German tanks. That's hacking. We've got this problem, we can't solve it. What can we do? Well, give me a sock and a grenade and some axle grease, and I'll solve your problem. The other one that we hear all the time is number 8, a malicious meddler who tries to discover sensitive information by poking around. This person is actually known as a cracker, but that word's been dropped. We don't use that word anymore because the media took it over in 1986, and now a hacker is somebody who does digital voodoo to you over a phone line at 3 a.m. while slamming cans of Jolt Cola and laughing maniacally to themselves while they twiddle their moustache. That's not really what we are. So we designed the hacker code, and everybody who comes to the HackLab, where we teach guys like yourselves, 8 to 16, to become powerful users of technology, not just a consumer, not just someone who takes their iPhone and does what they're told. And the hacker code says that the first step is to be excellent to each other. We're all working together. The world is falling apart. Have a look around you guys. You see the news, right? The grown-ups have wrecked it. All this stuff is happening, and none of them have any answers, because they think in the same way they did when they made the problem. We need people like you, people who think differently, people who come from a different place, a different paradigm, a world that's filled with technology. You're all digital natives. You can use this technology to become crazy powerful if you work together. You can solve any problem if you all work together. Respect your crew. Just because somebody else has a different idea to you doesn't make them wrong. It doesn't make them dumb. It means they have a different opinion. And how do we get better? By people challenging our ideas and having to prove them, having to put them through the crucible and say, my idea is right. So respect those people. The people who disagree with you are making your idea stronger. They are making it better. They're making it tougher in the broken parts. That said, if you're working with other people, that doesn't mean if you think you're smarter than them that you're the boss of them or that you can walk all over them. We work together. We're in the same space. Don't leave your mess around for somebody else to clean up. I am not your mum. Be aware. Pay attention. Look at the problem. Think about things. Don't just stumble through and do what you're told all the time. We use lots of dangerous stuff. If something is unsafe, don't touch it. Don't mess with it. Tell someone who knows more than you. Get them to help you through it in a safe way. Don't mess around in the lab if we're using electronics or we're using power tools or we're pulling apart a machine that could possibly hurt you. If you're not paying attention, it will likely hurt you. Even the sharp edges on technology can get you if you're not looking closely enough. Stretch your brain. If something is hard, that means you are learning things. Once you are outside your comfort zone, you are learning things. If you are incredibly comfortable, you are learning nothing. It's like sitting on the couch watching cartoons. You're not learning anything. Push yourself. That's how you get better. Athletes don't end up tough and strong because they sit down and go, oh, too hard today, it's raining. They run all the time, every day, and that's how they get tough. If you think all the time, every day, that's how you get smart. Don't give in. If a problem is hard, find somebody to help you. Like I said before, be excellent to each other, pull together. None of us is as strong as all of us together. And if you're very stuck, ask Google. Don't say, I don't know. We live with this amazing tool. 30 years ago, people would have lost their minds to have a research tool like Google available to them, and you have it in your back pocket 24 hours a day. We're the most information-rich generation in history. There is more information on Twitter than there would have been in years in the New York Times newspaper. Take that information, use it, make something better, be smarter, be more powerful. So we form a new hacker manifesto, because the old one kind of talks about being nasty to people who are dumber than you. We need to bring back this hacker mentality, the idea that taking stuff, pulling it apart, making it better is the right thing to do with it. Think outside the box, make a new idea, come up with a new solution, change the world. Because the world is broken right now. For a long time, people have had things done for them by technology. When our technology was coming up, when it was still being born, when it was growing up to where it is today, technology was the end itself. It was amazing to have a computer that could do these things for you. But that's not what it's for. It's there to make you smarter, faster, better able to solve problems. It's not the end in itself. You're supposed to use it to do big things. You can't even change the battery in your phone these days without taking it to a genius who you pay £80 to replace it. You're becoming a slave to your device. If you can't control it, if you have to go to the shop because you don't know how to make it do the thing, then it's in charge of you. And this makes you vulnerable to people who do know more than you. The people who do understand that your password isn't very strong and you probably haven't thought about it very hard because you think no one will hack me. Or the person who realizes how the internet security system works and they break into your website and change the front page. If you don't know how the system works, but you're in it, then people who do know how the system works are much more powerful than you. And you're at their whim. They can do what they like. You can't protect yourself. But if you do learn some things, if you go out and you become good and you teach other people how to do it, then you become a white hat hacker. White hat hackers are guys who know the system. They're powerful, they're tough, they know how to make things happen, and they tell other people when there are problems. So these guys work to ensure the security of the internet isn't compromised by the other two kinds of hacker, the less nice ones. They test the limits of your system, and they analyze the potential for alternative use. We see this happen all the time. There's a new system called HackerOne, which exists online now. In the old days, if you were a hacker and you worked out that there was a security breach in somebody's website, you could sell that for lots and lots of money on the black market to someone who might find it interesting. We heard about the Heartbleed bug, very recently, which was a huge internet security problem. HackerOne now pays bounties to people who find these problems. Instead of taking this and saying, well, I can make loads of money off of this information, you give it to HackerOne, and you make slightly less money, but you get a nice, warm, fuzzy feeling, and everybody around the place knows you as one of the good guys. You're one of the white hats. It's a really nice way to get people who know things about the internet and know things about digital security to do the right thing with their information instead of using it against people who don't know how to use it. The second group are grey hat hackers. These guys come up in the news all the time. They often refer to themselves as hacktivists. They likely have a political or social message they want to get across, or they just don't like something that is happening. Just this week, Anonymous have announced that they are going to troll ISIS on the 11th of December. And they urge everybody else to join in. You can jump on Twitter and you can tweet to the hashtag DAESH. Okay? You can tweet silly pictures that you've made of them. The idea of this is not to destroy their social communications, which is something that Anonymous has been systematically doing over the last year. They've been cracking down on ISIS. So a group of hackers who are from all over the world, they don't know each other. They all work together online to break down one of the biggest terror organizations that exists today. And they're doing it with things that they know how to do, security systems they know how to breach. They're closing down Twitter accounts, they're closing down Facebook pages, they're shutting down their methods of communication. Powerful people. Hacktivists don't usually act for selfish reasons, but they're not afraid to break the law. They'll use their power to solve their problem, whether they get in trouble or not. And they'll usually commit illegal acts to achieve their ends, things like social engineering passwords from people, breaking into places like the HB Gary, which is a financial institution in America. The common phrase among grey hat hackers is they do it for the lols. They're smart, they're powerful, they know it, and it's funny to mess with people who aren't as good as them. Not really a nice way to deal with things, not a nice way to be. But they exist. And if you know something about protecting yourself online, then you're not a victim for any of these people. They won't go for you, they'll go for someone smaller and easier to mess with. The last group are the black hats. These are the bad guys. In 1986, a guy called The Mentor was arrested for breaking into government websites in the US, and he wrote a thing called the Hacker Manifesto in an online magazine called Frack. You can still see it online. It's still hosted on exactly the same URL that it was posted to the very first day he made it. It's still on there, and it's kind of like a hacker declaration of independence. After he did that, everybody knew hackers were terrifying people. He made the news. He was a dangerous guy on this computer. These crazy geeky people who were in their bedrooms all day, we didn't know who they were. They were dark and nebulous and really scary, but not really because they looked like this. Okay, these are three, at one point or another, those three men were top of the FBI most wanted list because they're really terrifying. My favorite one is the last guy here, Captain Crunch. Very famous man in hacker culture. Looks a bit like Santa Claus. Don't let that fool you. He's actually a stone-cold genius. And what he worked out was that if I looked at the phone system that existed in the 80s and the 70s, then the way it ran was on a series of different tones. So if you put money into a payphone, then that payphone would make the series of beeps, beep, 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 down the line to a computer at the other end, which would then say, oh, well, you've inserted £6. You may now make a call to France. No problem. He worked out that that little plastic whistle on the end there that came free in his children's box of cereal could make the same sounds. So he would pick up any payphone, play the whistle down the phone, make the right noises, and he could call anywhere in the world for free. Free whistle in a box of cereal. He just knew how the system worked. He understood the system. It made him incredibly powerful. For years and years, these guys freaked the phone system. They got free phone calls. And then this guy, Captain Crunch, he made friends with two very famous guys. Both of them were called Steve. One of them was called Jobs, one of them was called Woz. And they hung out with Captain Crunch, and he taught them how to turn these tones into a digital machine. Woz started making a digital machine called the Blue Box, which would allow anybody who paid Steve and Steve $100 to make free phone calls to anywhere in the world. The first Apple product, guys, was an illegal hacked machine. They built the Blue Box to give people free phone calls. This is how they got the money to start Apple computers. Powerful people, iconoclasts, paradigm-shifting people. Why? Because they messed around with technology. They thought, wow, that's interesting. What can I make it do? So we need to empower you guys. We need to make you hackers. We need to make you go out and look at the tech, change the problem, or make a new solution. And there are 4 ways we can do that. The first one is to drop knowledge. So we need to stop computers, phones, technology from being this disposable magic box that is only fixable by a genius. It's not. It's just wires and resistors and a few chips that you can program if you know what you're doing. Like Voldemort in Harry Potter, the fact that nobody understands this system means that hackers who do understand it are like evil magicians, black wizards. How do they do that? Voodoo. It's not that hard. Once you've practiced and you've sat down and you've learned it, it's not really any more difficult than speaking French or Spanish. You're just speaking JavaScript or HTML. We wouldn't put anyone behind the wheel of a digger until we'd shown them how everything inside the digger worked, and we explained to them that it's dangerous and things might happen. And yet, how many of you guys have got a phone right now or an iPod that's connected to the Wi-Fi? How many of you are connected to the internet in this room? Hands up if you're connected to the internet. That means you're connected to everybody else in the world 24 hours a day, all the time. Everybody else. Whether they're good guys, bad guys, or in between, you're connected to them by the thing stuck in your pocket. If you've got a smart fridge at home or a heating system that's connected to the Internet of Things, you're connected to those people. A few years ago, there was a hack on some baby monitors, and it still continues today. Baby monitors that were linked to the Wi-Fi so mum could check on the baby from work. Oh, there she is, nice and safe. But so could anybody else who knew how to get onto your network. And so what would happen was that kidnappers would watch through the baby monitors of people that they were monitoring, and they would find out when they weren't at home, when was a good time to come in. These people didn't know how to protect themselves from this, but they were part of the system. They were participating, but they didn't realize the risks of what they were doing. They didn't realize how to stop these things from happening, and these people took advantage of them. So don't be afraid to take the time and explain technology to people, especially young kids. They'll get it. It might take you once or twice, but if you explain it properly, you'll never have to explain it again. And think about this. We all know somebody who messes with the settings on their iPad or their laptop and can't fix it, doesn't know, calls you for help. Takes you about 10 seconds to put it back to rights. Good one, Mum. But think about this. If you show Mum how to do it for herself, she's not going to ask you again. She'll do it for herself next time. Saves you a lot of time and hassle. We need to start sharing the love of technology, because not everybody realizes how powerful tech can make you. People don't understand how easy it can make your life. These 3 things. Lifehacker is brilliant. I urge everybody to go on there and just do a random search. There are things on that webpage that will make your life so easy, and all kinds of stuff, not just technology. Crazy little hacks for the kitchen, things that you can do really simply that will make your life simpler and easier, which is what hacking is really all about. RetroPie, we all know what the Raspberry Pi is, 30-pound computer. So for £30, you can take your Raspberry Pi, install this distribution on the SD card called RetroPie, which will turn your 30-pound computer into a retro gaming machine that can play any video game from the last 50 years. £30, video game. Any one you want, you name it. All the way back from Space Invaders and Pong, all the way up to things like Sega Genesis games, Super Nintendo games, all that cool stuff. So we need to encourage exploration and experimentation with all these digital things. Get in there, find out how they work, break them apart, put them back together, make something new, make something better. The more we can get everybody to realize that technology is there to make your life easier. It shouldn't be tricky. It shouldn't be complicated and difficult. Technology is there to make your life easier, simpler. Okay? You can automate a lot of things in your life that were really annoying. I would be lost without my Google Calendar reminders. We need to be MacGyver. You guys are probably a bit too young for MacGyver. But he's a secret agent who could save his own life, escape from a jail cell with nothing more than a piece of dental floss, a toothpick, some chewing gum, and a pencil. But the cool thing about him was that he always found a solution. Well, I can take that, and this might work, but we'll give it a crack, and if it doesn't, we'll try something else. So people who see problems and create solutions should be prized in today's society, because we got a lot of problems, guys. I mean, you watch the news. And I said it earlier, the grown-ups have wrecked this place. Climate change, internet viruses, the hole in the ozone layer, oil wells, Syrian refugees. There's a gigantic pile of plastic floating in the middle of the Pacific Ocean that's the size of an island. We've got no fossil fuel left. We need people who don't think the same way. Einstein said we can't solve the problems with the same thinking we used when we made the problem. The people who made the problem can't fix it. They already think in the way that creates that problem. You guys, the new team, the people who are coming up, the guys who can all work together and use technology to become these amazingly powerful people, you are the people who need to fix these problems. You need to start taking the way you look at the world and the exasperation that you have for the old people who have wrecked the place and the way they treat the place and do something different. Fix the problems they've created. And the last way we can empower people is to take our own power back. We need to start praising hackers and thinking about the way they do things. They're not here to hurt you. It's like learning karate. If you're a black belt in karate, you could very easily go out in the street and beat somebody up. But that's not why you learn it. You learn it so that if somebody comes to mess with you, you have some sort of skill that can protect yourself. It's there to look after yourself with. And anybody who learns karate could be a bad guy. But if everybody knows karate, then that bad guy is slightly less of a threat. If we can all protect ourselves in some way, then those people who would do us harm, that harm is mitigated a little bit. So we all know someone who's fallen for one of those dumb scams online, and you rolled your eyes and said, how could you fall for that? Those pop-up ads that you guys probably just close, but like your mum would click on, like win a free iPad and all that sort of stuff. You've won this new prize draw. We know they're fake, right? We've seen them a million times. Oh, that's just that spam. You guys probably tune it out. You probably don't even see it anymore, but people still fall for those things. Those scams still catch people. Otherwise, they wouldn't exist anymore. So that's what we do at HackLab, guys. We want you to come in. We take you as young as 8. You come mess with technology, see how it does stuff, build something new, take that knowledge and create something else. Solve problems with tech, okay? That's what we want you to do. That's where we need you to go, because you are the people who are going to save the world in the future, and you have to do it with the stuff that exists, or make something better. Don't take the stuff that the adults have given you, all this technology that exists around you, and okay, yeah, that's fine. Don't just do what it does. What can you make it do? What can you get from it? Think about this. Really simple one, and it happens all the time. Very obvious one. Your phone. If you have a smartphone in your pocket, an iPhone or an Android phone, it has an RFID reader and writer in it. RFID just happens to be the same frequency that the new Apple Pay cards work on, and your Oyster card works on, and those PayWave bank cards work on. And so if you were clever and you realized that, well, my phone has RFID, and these bank cards have RFID, and my phone can read it, and it can write it, then all I have to do is wander past people's bank cards with my phone, and I can copy them all. When the Oyster cards first came out, that's exactly what somebody did. They would step onto a tube with their phone in their pocket, and anybody who was within 3 meters of them had their Oyster card cloned. And then when the guy wanted a free tube ride, he would take out his phone, wipe it across the machine, and off he went. Free Oyster card, charged to somebody else, some other random person. Why? Because he was powerful, because he knew how the system worked. Wasn't the right way to deal with his knowledge. A white hat hacker would have gone to Transport for London and said, did you know that your Oyster cards don't work? This guy was a black hat hacker. He took his knowledge, he used it for something bad. But it's all around you, and it's that simple. What does this thing do? Oh, interesting. I wonder if it does this. And if it does, something new. You've changed it. You've shifted the paradigm. You've made a new piece of technology. You've created something extra from things that used to exist. Thanks, guys.